I'm back with another episode. I label this the chill episode because I actually don't have anything to rant about. I don't have anything to complain about. Some of you may not be happy with that. I know some of you really like it when I go on rants and call out the ACL or really call out companies on stuff. I don't have that. Some of you may be happy. Some of you don't like that. So this is kind of more of a chill episode. But there are some relevant topics out there that I did want to bring up and discuss with this episode. So I'm gonna cover a few of those. There's a recent article written out Frontline Sports I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about what I call and define a performance liner. I have a review coming out tomorrow. I'll dive more into what that is, but I didn't want to spend time in the review explaining the difference of what I call a performance liner versus what's a regular liner versus what is a bag with no liner, what they do, and how to tell if your bag has one of them and how I classify them. I want to touch on recap of the Knoxville Major, the ACO Knoxville Major this past weekend, as well as the ACL Open in Biloxi, Mississippi this past weekend. Recap the Bag Makers Championship or update that because we have a new ACL Open coming out this weekend. So I want to update the current Bag Makers Championship before we jump into the next one. So let's go ahead and jump in. First thing I want to talk about is last week, my last episode last week, if you haven't listened to that, go listen to that. I talked about the ACL, they're measuring bags now that for division winners and at opens and events. And in that, a lot of you commented back, or quite a few commented said that we should just do away with stamps. The stamps are stupid, blah blah blah. They're just money grabs, whatever, blah blah. I just want to touch on. I think we do. We do need stamps. We do need stamps. We need it. We need to have a rules in place for the equipment because unfortunately there are people out there that will take advantage of it. There are companies that will take advantage of it. If there isn't stamps, if there isn't regulations, we need those. I appreciate the fact the ACL is testing the equipment to make sure that they are valid. I just don't like the process, the way they're doing it. The process they're doing it, and I don't like what they're doing after they've done it if something fails. I said last week that in the last episode, this year should be a learning year for everybody, not a year to punish people. And I think they're not utilizing, they're punishing people too soon when no one really understands the process or understands what's going on. I don't think the ACL fully understands it. So, but I just say all that to say we do need regulations. We need stamps. I don't like the current stamp process the ACL uses. I wish they would go the TCL method with putting the year the bag expires as opposed to the year the bag is. Well, it's not even the ACL is not even the year the bag's made because there were 2025 stamp bags made in 2024. So I don't even the ACL stamp is confusing. I don't like the ACO with no year on there. I don't mind the fact the bags don't expire, but it is confusing if a company makes a tweak or a change to a bag in the ACO, at least in the ACL or even the TCL, you can refer to the year of the stamp and say, oh, I've got the 24 version, 23 version, 25 version, whatever. On the ACO side, you don't have that. So if they don't change the name of the bag or add a two or a letter or something to it, it's hard to distinguish between which bag is which on the ACO side. As far as I know, the ACO doesn't inspect bags. I don't think, I'm not aware of that. I think you can ask for a bag to be inspected in the ACO, but I don't know if anybody does that. So, maybe the ACO can step up their side a little bit better. The ACL needs to tone down their side some. So it needs to be fine. We need to find a balance in the middle between the two leagues. But I think we're on the right path. I just think that things aren't right. They aren't perfect now. The changes need to be made. And if you want to listen to last week's episode, listen if you haven't yet. I dive more into that. Next thing I want to talk about is an article written recently on Frontline Sports. I'll pull this up here because I want you guys to. I'm going to talk about a few things on that. All right, I should have the article up on your screen now, and it's starting to pay to be good at cornhole. And there's been some talk about this on Facebook. I noticed that recently someone shared this and talked about it on Facebook. And mainly they're talking about it. I'll scroll down here for you. I'll jump to the key point here, and this is down this paragraph down here, and it says Stacy Moore, who's the commissioner of the ACL, says that roughly 20% of its pros are able to play cornhole full time. That's gotten a lot of attention. A lot of people are calling BS on that and saying there's no way it's 20%. In one of the posts that was made, Trey Ryder commented that they actually sent a poll out to their pro and elite players, and he said that about 30% of them responded back that cornhole is their full-time job, but they toned it down to 20% because they figure about 10% of those are juniors, which don't really have full-time jobs. So that's why they went the 20% number. I honestly think that that's probably about accurate. I think people, I don't think people realize what these cornhole pros make. Not just, and this is not just from winnings. Like I think people don't understand the winning side. There's multiple avenues of money. They get winning from the ACL, they get winning from non-ACL tournaments, they get sponsorship money, and then if they have a social media following or active on social media, they can also get money from that side as well. So there's a lot of avenues that they can make money. And a full-time job, it varies from person to person. Whatever the amount of money that you need to it's called cover your nut, right? Cover your nut is to cover all of your expenses. Your nut is what you need to cover your expenses, to pay your bills, to live on. The money you need to cover your nut varies from person to person, depending on how you live, your lifestyle. It's all different. So to you, maybe you need to make a six-figure income to be full-time, but maybe for some of these cornhole pros, maybe they need to make 40,000, 50,000 a year, right? So the amount that needs to be made to determine full time is different from person to person. So there's no defined figure. But what's interesting is there's a couple things they talk about. They talk about Jeremiah Ellis here, and that he pulled in 61,458 across all events last year. I'm assuming that is only the ACL events that he won last year, the money he took in on that. I don't think that includes the non-ACL events. And these cornhole pros are playing in tournaments throughout the week, on weekends, non-ACL open weekends, so that they're playing in events, so they can make more money that way. Plus, that doesn't include the sponsorship. So you can tack on, $10,000, $20,000 extra in sponsorship money that's coming in on that. And then if there are other avenues of income, and now Jeremiah has a full-time job, and he drives for UPS, so he has a full-time job on top of that as well. But $61,000 is enough to be a full-time income, right? That's there. Now, again, we're talking about one of the top in the game. I don't know where he ranked last year in earnings. He's second in earnings among all. So right here it says he's second in earnings among all 300 of the cornhole players. So he was second last year in earnings. Then they go down and talk about Cheyenne Bubenheim, and she was the top earning female, fifth highest overall last year with 54,650. Again, that is only what she's earned. As far as I understand here, only what she's earned playing ACL. It doesn't count other events they played in. It doesn't count sponsorship money. It doesn't count anything else. So we're looking at, again, she's the fifth highest. Jeremiah was the second highest. We're at the top level there. But to get to 20, I don't know what these players make sponsorship-wise. And honestly, you got to remember, people make a full-time living on TikTok. They make a full-time income, and they make really good money on TikTok. There's money to be made in the social media field, and these players have a good following. I don't know of one yet. That's the only one I think that's taking advantage is Adrian Johnson. He's really taken advantage of the social media side of it. I don't know why other players haven't done that and really kind of they don't put more content out. 'Cause I know I would be all over it behind the scenes. I'd love to. I know they're starting to do more and more lives of their games. But I want to see more of their practice sessions. I want to see more of their day-to-day life. I want to know what it is to be a cornhole pro. That's the content I want, not just how are they playing in a tournament, not just watching them beat somebody in a local event. I want to know who these people are. There's content they could put out more and more besides cornhole that I think people would watch and people would eat up. And once a player figures this out, one of these top players out, they can really make a pretty good income. And honestly, if I'm a sponsor, I would rather sponsor an Adrian Johnson than a Jeremiah Ellis. And that's not knocking Jeremiah Ellis, but Adrian Johnson gets more eyeballs on his content. He's a good player. He's a great player. He's not at that top level. He's not a top 20 player, I would say. And I don't know where he ranks. I'm not trying to knock Adrian Johnson, but I'm saying what he does on social media is amazing. The following he has, the content he puts out, he's constantly on there. He gets a lot of eyeballs. If I'm a company, I want him because more people are watching his content than are watching the pros who play on Facebook or YouTube or even on ESPN. There are more eyeballs on Adrian Johnson's social media accounts. So if I'm a company, I want those eyeballs looking at my content because as a business, if I'm sponsoring someone, I expect a return on my investment, an ROI from what I expect to get more money back in sales than what I'm paying out in sponsorship. And if that's not happening, then I'm not sponsoring them. And that's where I think these players are really dropping the balls on the social media side. So 20% of the pros, which I think is about, 30 or 40 players. I think there's less than 200 pros right now. There was 256, but they didn't, anyone who didn't accept it, they didn't fill that up for this year. Next year's only going to be 100, so it'll be even less than that. So really that 20% should grow next year to a larger amount. But we're looking at, 30, 40 players, I think, out there that are full-time cornhole. I don't think that's far-fetched. I don't think it's impossible. And honestly, I think these players can make a lot more than what they are as the sport grows, but as they market themselves. And you look at other sports, Michael Jordan made a lot of money playing basketball. He made more money from Nike and from sponsors than he did, playing basketball. Tiger Woods made a lot of money playing golf. he brings in a lot more money outside of golf from sponsorships. And that's I think anytime you look at an athlete, most athletes that sign contracts, their contract with the sport pales in comparison to their marketing and their sponsorships and their endorsement deals and all of that. Yet that's not the case in cornhole yet. And I think because a lot of companies don't really understand cornhole, they don't know the demographics, they don't know the audience, so they're trying to figure out what to pay and what it's worth to them. And that's where I think as the sport grows, more companies will get in and figure it out. I am shocked that we don't see more beer company sponsorships, whiskey company, alcohol sponsorships. Like cornhole and alcohol go hand in hand. I don't know why we don't see more sponsors. I don't know if the players aren't reaching out or if the companies just aren't interested. I don't know what it is, but I feel like that's a huge opportunity that's being missed. If I'm a player, why wouldn't I go find a beer company and have them sponsor me? That just seems like a perfect fit. And if I'm a beer company, why wouldn't I want to sponsor a top cornhole pro? I just like the ads you could put out there, the fun you could have with that on social media. If I'm that company, would just be awesome. So I think there's an avenue there. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities that I think are being missed. And once these players figure this out, and I'm not trying to knock these players, right? This is learning for all of them. But I think that 20% is very reasonable, and I think it can go up. I have in my mind, I don't see why 100 pros in the ACL couldn't be full-time pros. And I think that's kind of why the ACL is trimming from 256 down to 100, is because they want to be able to have full-time pros. I think 100 pros in a few years down the road is very feasible and possible without the ACL having. I think people talk about the ACL needs to pay the pros. I don't think that's the case, right? The NFL doesn't pay the players. The teams pay the players. The Major League Baseball doesn't pay the players. The NBA doesn't pay the players. It's the teams that play them, that pay them. So I don't think the ACL needs to pay the players, right? Now, as this teams event grows, or if they come up with some kind of franchise model for teams, then maybe that could happen to some degree. But I think in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we could see 100 pros or more being paid full time. And honestly, about it in another episode I did here is you don't have to be a non-ACL pro and go full time, because you can make money on the advanced side in the ACL and then go ACO and play ACO events and make money there. So honestly, there's more money probably if you're not a top level ACL pro, if you're kind of, in that, I don't know, 15 to 50-ish range, you could go out there and you could probably win a lot more money not being an ACL pro by playing a lot of advanced division and opens and playing the ACO side. I think there's income, and then you got sponsorships on both ACO and ACL, because you got an ACL bag company, ACO bag company, blah blah blah. And I talked before, I don't think bag company should be the number one sponsor of these players. I think a bag company should sponsor players, but there should be something else, whether it's apparel, whether it's alcohol, whether it's a energy drink, whether it's food. Someone else should be the major sponsor of players, not the bag companies. And I don't know if that. I think some of that falls on the players. The players just go, "Oh, my bag comes from a major sponsor," and they leave it at that. Whereas I think once somebody makes that leap and says, "You know what? I'm gonna go find a bigger sponsorship from Nike or Under Armour or Reebok, or I'm gonna go to Doritos or Monster or C4 or whoever and get a bigger sponsorship than what my bag company is, and put the bag company down as a second sponsor." Then I think once they figure that, I think you'll start seeing more of that. It's just gonna take that first person to do it and figure it out, and I don't think we're far off from that. So again, I ramble too much, but I think the 20% that are living full time off cornhole is a very conservative number. I think there's more than that, because that's only talking ACL, right? There are ACO pros that are probably making this a full-time living as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So you can drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about that. Let me jump into performance liner versus regular liner and how I classify them, because there isn't a industry definition of what's a performance liner or what isn't. It's kind of a term that I didn't create the term performance liner. The first time I heard it was through B3 Cornhole and their bags. I think that was the first bag that I used that actually had what I would classify as a performance liner, or that I was aware of. Other companies use it, but I've been getting some people asking me questions or sending me messages. Hey, does this bag have a liner, a performance liner? Or I read this bag. I read the description. The company says it has a performance liner in it, but you didn't say it in your video. And so I wanted to kind of do a quick breakdown. Mainly, and the other thing is tomorrow I got a review coming out of the BG Kingslayer, and this is what brought this up, is because I've had quite a few people messaging me asking, does this bag have a performance liner in there? And there's some information out there. There's been some BG reps that have been commenting on Facebook posts saying yes, it does have one. I've seen a few of them say that. There's some other information that it's a liner in there and it's performance. And so I just want to clarify it. I'm not trying. This is not going to be I'm not trying to like. Don't think that I'm trying to knock BG on this, right? I'm not. I'm not. I just want to be more clear about when I say a bag has a performance liner. This is what I mean, and how you can tell if your bag has one or not, if that makes sense. So when I talk about performance liner, I'm talking about on the inside of the slow side, there is another material in there that is super slick, super thin, that's between this slow side material and the fill. It separates the two, and so it reduces the friction because materials, these especially hybrid or carpet, but even even a polished material, it's on the inside. It's a pretty rough material. It's not a very smooth surface. And I was talking to Andy, owner of B3. He does the bag surgery videos. I don't know if you've seen those. I don't know if he put one out recently. He's done this where he opens the bags up and talks about it. And he said he was finding out when he opened a lot of bags up that he was finding the fill embedded into the material on the inside from the bags hitting. That fill's getting jammed in and getting stuck in there. And that's when it came to him to put a liner in there to help prevent that, to keep the fill moving. Because once that fill embeds into the material, then it's not moving. And in order for a bag to drip in the hole, that fill has to move. That fill just sits still, the bag's just going to hang there and sit. So you want fill moving. And it makes sense, right? You take away the friction, you reduce the friction, and it's going to encourage the fill to slide and move more, and it causes those bags to drip in. So that's where you get that performance liner. But the other thing a liner does is it helps protect the material for durability. It helps reduce stretch. So materials like herringbone carpet, I think pretty much everybody who uses a herringbone carpet has whether a liner, a backing, something in there, because if you don't, you're going to have problems with that material. Herringbone is very fragile. It's going to fail, and it doesn't. I'm going to slide right here, and I said I wouldn't do a lot of rants, but I know people talk about, hey, you can't throw herringbone on rough surfaces. You can't use heat on herringbone. You're going to make it fragile. Blah 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 blah. Every herringbone bag I've used heat on them to break them in, whether it's hot water, whether it's heat in the dryer. And then I throw my bags on concrete. I throw my bags on asphalt. I play a lot in the cul-de-sac on the sidewalks. When I'm outdoors, and I finally put a carpet down in my last few years, and I'm indoors now for the winter. But I'm outdoors, I put a carpet down only because I do sell my bags sometimes, and if I throw on the concrete, sometimes the materials will get snags or runs in them, and people don't like that. It doesn't hurt anything; it's just cosmetic, but people don't like that. So I put the carpet down just so I don't get many of those runs. But a lot of times, the bags that I own that I could keep to play with, I throw on rough, and I throw my herringbone a lot on those rough surfaces, and I haven't had a failure. Now, that's not saying that yeah, I'm saying that because I think just herringbone, there are just times where it's going to fail. There's nothing you can do. It's going to fail. But by putting a liner in there or a backing on there, what you're doing is you're taking some of that stress off that material, and you're helping to prolong the life of that material. And even if you get a split, you get a hole, whatever, if it has a liner, you're not going to lose fill. But when these bags land on the board and they smack down and land, that when they hit, that fill spreads out and it goes to the extreme edges when it flies out, and that puts a ton of stress on the seams and the materials. And that liner actually takes and absorbs some of that stress and takes away some of the abuse that the seam's going to take, the stitching's going to take, and that material's going to take. So it helps with the durability, the longevity of the bag. It helps the bag hold its shape better because bags with liners don't stretch as much. And if it's a super slick, thin material, it's going to help with the performance because you're going to get bags that drip in the hole more. Now, I have a bag here I want to show you. This is a bag. This is actually a bag that was just made. If you're not aware, bags are made inside out. They're stitched, put together stitched. This is stitched inside out, and then they take them and they flip them inside out and then fill them. So this is before the bag is flipped and filled. This is a performance line right here. It's not even attached. This is actually a herringbone carpet on the slow side here. It's not attached. It's a loose material here, but it's stitched in with the other material. So the fill is going to go on this side of it between the fast side and this side. The fill will not come in contact with the back side of this herringbone material. This material is super slick. It's super thin. It's very durable, right? So this fill is going to slide much quicker, much easier, much better on this liner than it would on the inside of this herringbone material. And so when I talk about performance liners, this is what I'm talking about. Now, a company can put a liner here in another material, and I've seen companies do it, and I've talked about it before. They'll put a liner in that is not super slick. It's just a thicker material. They're putting it in just for durability. There's some companies that will put an extra piece of material, just a regular material, whether it's on the fast side or the slow side, just to put something in there. And technically can call it a liner because that's what it is. There is a fusible liner which will actually adhere to the back of this material. I don't know the difference between a fusible liner and a backing. If the liner is attached to this material, I call it a backing. Just that's my terminology. I call it a backing. Maybe I'm wrong in that. Someone can correct me. I'm not a material person. I don't know the correct terminology, but to me, if the liner is fused to this material, it's not separate. To me, that's a backing. If it's separate, that's a liner. That's how I distinguish the two of those. That leads me to the question of how do you tell if your bag has a performance liner, or how do I tell if a bag has a performance? Because I don't open the bags, and it's a really simple test that I use. I pick the bag up and I just pinch it and I rub my fingers together and see how easy, I'm squeezing hard. I'm squeezing really hard. Like I'll pick the bag up the way to the back and I'll pinch it really hard to hold it. And I'm trying to rub to see how easy my fingers move and that material moves. And if it's very slick in there, it has a performance liner. If it's gripping and grabbing, not moving at all, there is no liner. If it moves a little bit, then I think it has a liner of some sort of backing, but it's not a performance liner. You can even also take and pinch it like this and do the same thing and try to move it, right? And so when I'm doing this one, this Kingslayer, my fingers move, but there is friction. It's grabbing, and so to me, I can tell. And plus, this material feels a little thicker than a material that doesn't have the same material without a liner. So I feel like there's something on the inside of it. I don't know what it is. I think this is some type of backing, the way that I would call backing. I think it's fused to the material. I don't feel like it's a separate. I don't feel like it's a separate liner that I can tell. I could be wrong. Again, I don't open the materials and know. But to me, it's not super slick and easy to move. So if I take let me find a bag that has a liner. Here you go. These True Cornhole trimmers. This is a perfect bag because this is the same material that's on the slow side here. This, I can pinch it and I can just move my fingers. And I'm squeezing hard and I have very little friction. I can move this really easily because True uses a performance liner, a true performance liner in their bag. So it's really easy to move. So if I take these two, like I've got movement here, it's very hard to move my fingers on this Kingslayer. So to me, again, this is not a performance liner. And then if I take a bag that doesn't have a liner, here. If I take a bag that doesn't have a liner and I pinch it, and I squeeze, I can't, my fingers don't move at all, right? If I try to pinch and again, you're squeezing, push your fingers together really hard and try to move them. There's no movement here, but in the materials, that tells me there's nothing in there. There's no backing, there's no liner that I can tell, or they're using a material that is not slick at all. It's the same type of material, but I don't feel anything in that bag. So that's how I determine the difference. Is it 100% accurate? No, because again, I don't open the bags up to look. I can tell you, when a bag has a performance liner, it's very obvious to tell, right? You can clearly tell if you've ever felt one with it. Once you feel one with it, even if I pinch this way, it's so easy to move. It's super slick. There's very little resistance there. Where with this one, I can get it to move, but I can feel a lot of resistance, a lot of friction there. And then this one here, yeah, it's even harder to move, right? So that's kind of how I tell the difference. And if I have a bag that has a performance liner, I will tell you. If I have a bag that has a liner, I may tell you, I may not. If there's one that doesn't, I'm not saying anything. Because here's the thing. Does a bag need a liner? No. A bag without a liner still plays great. A bag with a liner, it's not a performance liner, it still plays good. I will mention it because to me, a performance liner takes that bag to the next level. So like a bag without one is still a great bag. A bag with one is an even better bag, in my opinion. That's how I rate it. That's how I talk about it. I hope that answers questions. I'm afraid I caused more confusion. I don't know if I really explained that as well as I wanted to. I probably could have done a better job of that. But that's in my mind. If there are certain companies that use performance liners in all their bags, and I know B3 uses it in a lot of their bags. I know True Cornhole uses it in all their bags. Southwest Bag Company has it in some of their bags. Swag Bags has it in some of their bags. There's some other companies that use a liner in their bags. And so if you watch one of my videos and I talk about having a performance liner, if you get your hands on some of the bags, pinch it. Because once you feel this one time and understand what you're looking for, it's very easy from that point forward to tell if a bag has one or it doesn't have anything at all, right? Once you understand what you're looking for, it makes it very easy. I wanted to clarify this because, again, there's no industry standard cornhole to define a performance liner. So I think sometimes people just say, oh, it's a liner, therefore it's a performance liner. And there's nothing wrong with that, but their use of performance liner is different than mine. And so I just want, it's like I did the video on the different fills because there's different ways that people describe fills. And I wanted to make sure that I'm consistent in how I do it. And so I want to make sure if you're watching my videos and you hear me use a term, I want you to understand what I mean by that term, but also understand that not everybody else who uses that same term means the same thing. So just because you hear somebody, a company, a rep, or somebody say a bag has a performance liner, it doesn't always mean it has one based on how I use performance. I hope that makes sense. I'm rambling. I'm gonna get out of that, but I hope I clarify what I gotta say. If you have questions on that, let me know. Drop a comment down below. If I can clarify any better, I'll try to do it. Probably wasn't the best explanation there. Next thing I want to talk about is I had an opportunity to go on to talk with Sean and Dane with the Big Ass Cornhole podcast. Last year I went on their podcast. They do a best of the bags, which is like a March Madness tournament every year for the cornhole bags, and it's people get kind of into it. You know, it's fun. It's a popularity contest. It's not always which bag is better. It's which bag has more fans, which company can generate more support. It's really more about popularity than it is about which actual bag is better. It's done through their Facebook page, and you go on there and you vote, and they'll put different matchups up and you vote, and then bags advance. Anyway, I spoke with them last week, last Friday, had a conversation with them, and we went through and set the bracket up. We did it last year. I went on the podcast and we did a draft. This year we're doing it differently, and I love the way that they decided to do it. I think it's an awesome way. We actually picked out 128 bags to put in the bracket, and what's even more amazing is each company gets one bag. So there's 128 different bags and 128 different bag companies in the bracket this year, and that way, because last year it turned out to be the Wizard L versus the Sub-Zero Wintertide, and I think the Sub-Zero Tempest as well. So it turned out to be the final three there was two of the same companies, and I think that skewed because people were split on who to vote for Sub-Zero, kind of skewed a little bit of the voting. Here, every company's got one bag. Again, it's a popularity contest, and just because that company, we tried to pick the top bag from each company. There's going to be people who disagree which bag we put in there, I'm sure. I don't think anybody can complain about what companies went in there, because honestly, we went through 128. I think every company that I've reviewed a bag for, I think has got a bag in there. We towards the end there, we were just looking down the list of approved bag makers for the ACL and the ACO and even the TCL, and trying to figure out who we missed. So if you know of a company, if you have a company and you're not in that 128, that means you're not on our radar, which means you probably ought to, at least get in touch with me or get in touch with Sean and Dane and their podcast, or, find a way to get in there next year, right? I think every company that I'm aware of, and some that I didn't even know about, are on that list. I'm excited for it. So coming up this Monday, February the 3rd, I think it is coming up. I'm gonna jump on with Sean and Dane, and we're gonna do a reveal. I think they're gonna go live on their Facebook page. They may not, but anyway, if they don't go live, they'll put it out there to do a video. We're gonna do a reveal and reveal the brackets to everybody, and then from that point forward, I'll keep you guys up to date. Jump on their Facebook page, Big Ass Cornhole Podcast. Go jump on their Facebook page, like their Facebook page, follow them so you can keep up with this. They have a podcast out. If you're watching my content, you're gonna like their content. So if you're not listening to their podcast, go jump on there and listen to them. Support them. Great guys. They do a lot for the sport of cornhole. I think you're gonna enjoy their content if you don't listen to it. So I'm excited about it. I'll put more information about it coming out as we get further along. But Monday, February 3rd. I don't know what time. As soon as I know it, I'll post on my social media account. So follow me on my social media. I'll let you know what time. If they're going live, you can jump on there and hear the as we do the bracket reveal. So I'm just excited. I've always been a fan of this. I love their best of the bags that they do every year, and so I'm excited to be part of it for the second year in a row. It's exciting for me. Now let's jump in, and I want to talk about the ACO Knoxville Major, and we'll do a quick recap. Singles, Isaac Hurt won. He was throwing the Gusto medal. I'm pretty sure it was the medal. He was throwing the Gusto bags. The medal, I think, is his bag of choice. I couldn't really tell because I don't think the bag actually, he had a custom design. I don't think it said metal in there. I'm sure it said metal. And doubles, Josh Holland and Kanan Culberson won doubles with the LaBelle Rage. And then in juniors, Kanan won juniors, but he was throwing the LaBelle Warrior, I believe, in juniors. For women's, McKenna Kopp won. She was throwing the Basement Bags Corrupt. Seniors, Daryl Macon won, and he was throwing the Elite Bag Company. I think it was the 1839s. Again, he had a custom design. I couldn't really tell, but I think it was the 1839s that he threw. That seems to be his bag of choice. And then in co-ed, McKenna and Mackenzie Kopp won, throwing their Basement Bags Corrupt. So that was the recap. I mean, that's kind of what I love knowing what bags are throwing. So I thought I'd like to just kind of let you guys know, here's who won and here's what bags are throwing. If I got one of these wrong, let me know. Shoot me a message. Let me know if they were throwing a different bag. It's tough. The ACO does a better job on their broadcast because Dylan and Bill from CBC were doing the announcing, and they're, being the fact that they own a bag company, they do a really good job of highlighting what bags are being thrown. I didn't watch the whole broadcast of all of them. I saw singles and doubles. Some of the other ones I didn't see the juniors, women's, seniors, co-ed. I kind of skimmed through them, so I may have. I think I got the right bag company. I may have missed the actual model of bag they're throwing. So if I got something wrong, let me know there. On the ACL side, they had an open in Biloxi, Mississippi. Singles was Tony Smith. He won. He was throwing the Pro Sniper, the Lucky Bags Pro Sniper Elites. Pretty sure he threw the Elites the whole time in singles. Doubles, Jamie Graham, Jacob Brzezinski won that, throwing the AAR Rippers. It's funny because the last episode I talked about chemistry. I was talking about my Bag Makers Championship and how I think chemistry is important. And I mentioned how Graham and Brzezinski didn't seem to have chemistry, and then they go out and win the next open in doubles. So just prove me wrong. Just show me that I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know if they heard what I said, they took it personal, or what. It was a big coincidence, but I talked about how I think their chemistry doesn't really work well together, and they turn around and win the doubles the next open. So good on them. I'm a huge fan of Jacob. I love watching Jacob throw. I love his emotion. I love how he plays the game. So I'm excited to see him win. I think he's on the edge of being one of those elite players that you see being talked about as the best player in the game, right? He's right there. He's so close to being there. I don't know what he needs to do. It may be a little more consistent, but he's right there. Eventually, I think he's going to be that player that we're going to say, or I wouldn't be shocked to see him eventually become the number one player in the world and win some nationals, or was it signature events? And that may be this year. Maybe I love watching him. I always tune in when he's playing. On the junior side, Gabriel Clausen won, throwing the Wizard L's. Junior doubles was Bryce Forbes and Levi Haddock, also throwing the Wizard L's. Women's, Cheyenne Bubenheim won, throwing her Titan darts. Women's doubles was Cheyenne and Gina Ramirez, and I'm pretty sure they threw the Dragonbacks Power Dragons. I didn't see the women's doubles, but that's typically what they throw in doubles. Seniors was Eric Cooper. He was throwing the BG Kingslayers, which is awesome because that's the first time I've seen someone throwing the Kingslayers on a broadcast that I know of. So it's really nice to see him throw there. In fact, that's the first time I'd seen Eric Cooper play at all. I think he actually didn't he beat Damon Dennis, I think, in seniors? I think he beat Damon Dennis in the seniors, which is pretty big feat there. And then in senior doubles was Michael Henry and Harold Norris. I have no idea what they threw. I don't know. I don't think that was streamed anywhere. I couldn't find information. So if you know what they threw, let me know what bags they were. I don't know. But that's your ACL recap for the Biloxi, Mississippi Open. Again, we have another open coming out this weekend. I forgot where it is. I probably should know. I should know that, right? Where's the next open? I think I got it pulled up here. Next open is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that'll be coming out January 31st to February 2nd. It's the next open. Now let's jump in and talk about the updates to the Bag Makers Championship. And we'll start here. Let's start with doubles because that's kind of the least climatic right now, as you see. So even though AAR won with Jamie Graham and Jacob Brzezinski, they got the full 12 points. BG came in second, so they only gained 1 point on them. BG's running away with this. You can see here. BG's got 74.5 points. AAR is in second with 37 points. BG's doubled second place. The cool thing is from second down to, what does it look like, second to seventh there is a battle, right? So you've got AAR, all cornhole, Lucky, Titan, cornhole scenario, and Ultra all fighting for second place. So it'll be a nice battle. And then after that, there's like, I think 10 or 11 bags fighting for 8th place, right on up. So there's some battles within the different bag makers here. I think first place, BG's dominating. Now, I've talked about this. The signature events are coming up here. We've only got, what are we? We're on open number 8 coming up. So we got 8, 9, 10. We got 4 more opens coming up, and then we got 6 signature events. The signature events I am going to weigh differently. So if the open is 12 points for first, 11 for second, and then, well, then the problem is you have two people tie for third, so they each get 9.5, and you kind of have to break up the points because they don't play out their stat games. So there's a lot of ties as you go further down. But it's basically 12-1 for the top 12. On the signature side, I think I'm going to, a signature win has to be more than an open win. It just has to be. And I kind of like the idea of even giving the winner of a signature event more than a bigger gap over second. Like I feel like just doubling and going 24 and then 22 for second place is not really right. So I think in my head, I want to do like kind of, I compare this to Formula One in the past. 25 points for first maybe, and then jump to 18 for second, and then maybe 15 for third, and then kind of branch things down from there so that, first place gets a lot more points than the signature, which means even though, AAR is 37.5 points down, if Jacob and Jamie or Alex Rawls and Derek Holland or even, the Gore Jackson and Jacob Gore went on a run and won several of these signature events, they could still come back. So they're still not. It's not a lock for BG. I mean, they're sitting pretty, and honestly, it's hard for me to believe that BG is not going to finish up there near the top in all the signature events. But last year, BG didn't win a national. Like BG, their pro players struggle a little bit at nationals as far as not winning, right? I'm not saying that, I shouldn't say they struggle. I think, but the year before that, BG like dominated the nationals, especially with Grindersleeve, Eddie Grindersleeve and Caleb Batson, where I think they won like the last 3 doubles, nationals at doubles and world championship or whatever. They won those, and like every broadcast the year before in nationals, there was BG players on the broadcast. Last year, I don't remember. There weren't many BG players and BG teams on the broadcast in the finals or the semifinals for the national events. Like they really struggle in those big events. So if that comes true this year, there could be a comeback. So it's not a lock yet that BG wins. They're sitting pretty here. But now we go to single side, and it's a much tighter battle. BG's still in the lead, but BG's got 68.5 points, and AAR is in second with 63.5. Lucky's third with 62. So 3 teams right there, all within 6.5 points of each other. I mean, that's a tight battle right there for first place in those 3. And then you jump down, you've then got all cornhole, Titan, cornhole scenario, and ultra all battling for that 4th place right there. And then I mean, even Brotherhood's falling. They're 7.5 points behind ultra. They're not that far away. So it's a pretty good battle really at the single side, which is interesting to me. I mean, lucky AAR lost 3 points this weekend because they didn't win on the single side. They fell behind. But even with Lucky and all cornhole coming in first and second on the single side with Tony Smith winning, and then who came in second? Who came in second in singles? Josiah Aragwin came in second throwing the all cornhole, which I mean, that was a shot. I mean, look, he's a great player. I watched him play. He played phenomenal in the tournament. I didn't expect him to come in second, so it was awesome. I love seeing players like that you don't normally see come in there and have a great tournament. So that was exciting for me to see that. But AAR or not AAR, Lucky and all cornhole gained a few points on BG. So another open like that this weekend, and we could see a new first place team on the singles or first place bag company single side. So singles is really a tight race. I'm really excited to see how this plays out, especially as we get to the signature events. Anybody could win this still, really. So it's exciting. I'm loving the way these bag maker championships are playing out. I think this is exciting. I may have to tweak this for next season. We'll see. I don't know. I'd love to get your feedback. If you like the point structure, you like the way it's working out, if you're excited, or you think that there needs to be a different point structure. If you don't know how I rank the points, basically, and I talked about it the first time I did this, but each company only gets 1 set of points. So if BG had the top 3 players in singles, they get 12 points for first. They don't get anything for second or third. I'm not rewarding multiple points to one company. They get the points for the highest place they place. But what it does is if BG gets the top 3 spots, then no one gets points for second and third. So it's where they fall. So if BG has the top 8 spots, and then whoever's in 9th is, say, Lucky only gets points for 9th place. All those other points don't get added anywhere. So there is an advantage for a company like BG that has a lot of pros. They're getting that advantage in the fact that they're blocking other companies from scoring points or taking some points away by having the other teams there. But I didn't want to reward every single team or player that for the same company that plays there, because then it punishes the smaller companies that only have a handful of pros or only have a few pros. So I wanted to make it as fair as I could. It's hard to be fair because the bigger companies always have the advantage. They've got more pro. Like the reason BG is winning in doubles, zoning doubles, is because they're the only bag company to place in the top 12 in every single open this year, right? They're the only one there, and that's because they just have the volume of players. So even if their top pros don't go to an open, they still have other pros going or elite players going that are probably going to place in the top 12. And that just gives them that advantage. But it's, again, I'm not rewarding them for all of their places, right? Because, I mean, if you go back to even this past weekend or the weekend before last, like take Lucky. Tony Smith finished first. Mark Richards tied for third. I didn't give Lucky the tie for third for Mark Richards, right? I only gave him first place for Tony Smith. Right. And so you go down there like Jackson Gore and Jamie Graham both tied for second in their brackets, but I only gave AR the points for one of them, not for both of them. So I'm trying to balance it out the best I can so that the smaller companies do have a chance. Because, I mean, if you look at these standings here, that's why you see someone like a cornhole scenario up there competing, right? They don't have as many pros, but they've had some success with the pros that they have been playing, and it's keeping them competitive against a bigger company like BG. So that was my goal. If you have tweaks or ideas on how I can tweak this for next year, I'd love to hear it. Share with me. your thoughts on that. I've had some discussions with people about point systems, but I haven't really found one that I like better than what I'm doing. I don't think this is perfect, but I don't know what a perfect one is, if that makes sense. So it's exciting. And again, as we get to signature events, these points are going to change. I think positions will change a lot more in those signature events. So, we'll see. Maybe I get to signature and realize that I'm weighing them too heavily and it's not fair. Although I do think the signatures, it's like in golf, right? Your majors are worth a lot more money. Your majors should be valued more than your regular events. And that's how I look at the signature events and the ACL is those are your majors. Those are the majors. Those are the most important ones. If you're going to win an event, I'd rather win the signature event than a regular open. And I think they pay more. The pros would rather do that. There's more money, more prize money going to the signature events there is the open. So it's a bigger event. More of your pros are going to show up there. Whereas opens, you don't always get all of your pros. Sometimes it's pros, because it's expensive to travel with these pros, so they have to pick and choose which one. They can't go to every weekend. Some of them do have other jobs. They can't take off every single time there's an open and go. So you're going to have some opens are going to have more pros. Some are going to have less. So sometimes it's easier to win one of those. Whereas signature events are going to be more pros are going to show up. Although this year, I don't think you have to go to all 6. I think you only have to go 4 of the 6, if I remember right. I think only 4 of the 6 count towards your pro point standings. If I remember, I could be wrong on that. I'm off the top of my head here. Sometimes that's dangerous. So there may be some signature events that have less pros depending on where they are. We'll see. But I'm excited to see how this plays out. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you think this is working and any tweaks that you want to see for next season. I mentioned before, I'd love to get this going for the ACO. It's just tough because the ACO has so many majors that I can't do this every single weekend with them. And it's tougher because the ACO doesn't televise everything, or broadcast or stream everything. Sometimes they have a major and there is no stream for it. And it's hard to find the bags that these players are throwing sometimes. So that's I can go by the bags the companies are sponsored by, but it's just a little tougher, a little more work. But if this works out well, maybe I'll figure it out and we'll do it for the ACO next season. We'll see. Anyway, that's all I got today for you guys. I don't even know how long this is. I've rambled on. I told you I wasn't going to do it. I've rambled on. I always do it. It's going to be longer than I thought, but I appreciate you guys sticking around with me. As always, I thank you so much for your support and I thank you for watching.